The weather has been shocking lately, and it is terrible outside right now, and that ain't going to change for the foreseeable future. So this video is a boat building video, and I've already filmed my magician of a boat builder, brother-in-law Mike, take a flat pack of aluminium parts, cut those parts out, fold those parts up, assemble those parts, and then wave his magic wand and welded all those bits together. And by the end of that first video, 90% of the fabrication work was completed. The boat, of course, belonging to Hamish from NaCl Lures, and the boat design brief, the main reason this boat is being created is to get keen as land-based anglers on and off the rocks in hard to reach, secluded, and even at times inaccessible land-based fishing spots. I plan on meeting up with Hamish from NaCl Lures in the next couple of days and sitting that man down and asking that man to tell us a story. A story about how he started fishing, why he started fishing, how he ended up being a lure maker, and ultimately, how did he come to be designing, building, and dreaming of this very, very different boat that we are all seeing. I think it will be a pretty cool story.
Classic.
Tell me a story, Hamish.
My name's Hamish. I'm the owner, lure builder of NaCl Lures. I grew up fishing in Hawke's Bay, predominantly freshwater fishing. So I grew up with fly fishing with my dad and with my grandparents as well. Everybody was really into fly fishing and tying their own flies and things. So, you know, as a kid, I was walking up and down the rivers and the lakes, getting plenty of birds nests on the fly rod and occasionally putting hooks in one. And then kind of as I got into my teens, I got into a bit of land-based fly baiting and trying to target kingfish. As I kind of went through that process, you know, we caught a lot of fish. We were also super undergunned a lot of the time and broke a lot of gear, broke a lot of lures. But one of the most frustrating things for me was, you spend hours and hours on the rocks trying to catch a live bait and you see kingfish and you've got no way to catch them. So that's kind of where the lure casting thing came about for me, was, you know, a way to actually be fishing for the fish I was targeting straight away. I didn't have to catch a bait first, right? So I started buying a few lures and ended up destroying a bunch of plastic ones. And then, you know, I thought there must be a better way, you know, so I started making my own. NaCl Lures really came about by accident. I was making lures just for myself. One thing led to another and people wanted them, so, you know, it just grew and grew and grew, and now it's, you know, turned into a fully fledged business, and a bit of a curveball and a bit different from what I was doing previously, but, you know, it's heaps of fun, and, you know, it's allows me to connect with so many people who are, you know, so keen on this thing that I'm really passionate about. And topwater fishing is, you know, it's such a unique form of fishing. It really gives you a really good connection with the ocean. You know, you need to be really reading the tides and the current and the wind, you know, and the moon phase, and, you know, being really, really observant. You know, for me, it's as much about that connection to the ocean as it is about the actual fishing. You know, catching a big fish is fun, but it's like a byproduct of the whole process. You know, the lure casting is the glue that allows all of those things to come together. And I think if you just kind of go out there to just catch a fish and that's your whole goal, then, you know, you're probably missing a lot. You know, I'm trying to think what else I was going to say.
Now the boat, man.
The boat.
You're a land-based fisherman and you're building a boat.
Yeah, man.
What's the deal?
Yeah, well, I mean, all my fishing's been land-based, really, which I think probably up until, you know, the vast majority of my fishing's been land-based up until now, and, you know, I think that has partly come from the fly thing, but also, you know, just didn't have a boat. You know, family didn't. We did everything by walking into rivers and walking into land-based spots and stuff. So, you know, so now we've been building this boat with Marco. The whole concept is effectively a land-based, or a boat that is a land-based ledge, right? And a boat that allows you to land onto rocks and put people onto rocks in remote locations and do it real safely. Yeah, so it's a really, really different kind of a hull, and it's not for everyone, but it is the exact boat that I need to be able to put people onto the rocks in relatively gnarly conditions, but also to be able to take that boat offshore as well. You know, there was kind of these two components to the boat build. One was, how do we put people on the rocks, but also how do we have a boat that also can sleep a couple of people and do an offshore mission, and is also a super stable casting platform. So really combining all of those things, you know, and like every boat, you know, there's always compromises here and there, but I think the amount that we've been able to pack into this boat is, you know, pretty insane. And it's also meant that we've you know, come up with something that, you know, I can't really think of any other boat around that even kind of comes close to, you know, to what we're doing with this boat, and in this size. You know, it feels like it's really in kind of a class of its own. So, you know, but it is also a massive experiment. You know, we haven't got it on the water yet, and there's so many unknowns, and I think that's part of the appeal of the project to me as well, of like, let's just build it and see. You know, I think the shape of the hull is going to mean that it's going to be an amazingly stable casting platform, you know, but it's going to be interesting to see how it rides too. But you know, I don't mind getting wet, you know, so you know, if it comes out, then it's all good, man. So that's kind of the boat. I mean, for me, when I was designing it with Dane, the biggest thing for me was about safety in and around the rocks, and how do you design a boat to allow people to get on and off the boat onto the rocks in the surge if there's a bit of swell or something, in the safest way possible. You know, the most dangerous thing when you're getting off a boat onto the rocks is if somebody gets caught between the boat and the rocks. So trying to eliminate anything on the boat that could lead to somebody, you know, ending up in that situation, right? Because, you know, ultimately the thing that we're doing is just, you know, we're going fishing for fun, right? Like, it's, you know, so there's no point in putting yourself in any, you know, undue risk. So we kind of designed the whole boat and the hull to minimize those risks. So keeping everything, you know, along the bow, along the big cast deck, basically completely flat, hiding away any cleats, any bow rails or anything right off the front. So there's nothing for you to catch your feet on and trip off onto. You know, keeping the front of the boat really square so you can potentially stand two people on the bow together, so you can drop people off quicker and you're having to do less trips. You know, having a bow rail that, or as you said, a holy shit handle that folds down into the actual flush into the cast deck, so that you've got something to hold on to, but it can be folded away so you can't trip on it or anything. You know, all those little touches that meant that's a bit safer up the front. And then kind of down the back of the boat, little things like folding the transom, you know, backwards on itself. So if I need to back up the boat really quickly off the rocks and there's a wave coming in behind us, that it kicks down as much of the water as possible, as opposed to it riding up the transom and, you know, into the back of the boat and you start wallowing and right in a zone where you don't want to be. Yeah, so the whole thing kind of front to back is designed, you know, predominantly around the land-based landing stuff. I guess probably the biggest feature of the boat visually is the huge cast deck, which is big enough that the whole cast deck is on gas struts and pops up like a lid on a U. So what that gives you is this huge cavity that you can actually sleep two people in the tent. So that was quite cool. So basically I just wanted something where you could really quickly deploy the tent or get it away and store it away really quickly, so that you could use the hole underneath the whole cast deck as just a massive storage hold if we're going on a land-based trip. All the bags or whatever can just be dumped in there, and then we can just gap it and get out, and you know, everything's kind of away. There's, you know, you're not tripping over gear, and Minn Kota on the front, so, you know, super important. You know, opens up a lot of different fishing for us. You know, hummingbird sounder, and wet sounds audio all round. Big advocate of some decent tunes. Vibrations through the water, bringing the kings up when they're sitting low, you know.
Talk about learning how to build a boat, man, because you've never built a boat before, right?
No.
Or fitted a boat, seen a boat, done anything with a boat.
That's been a journey, man. For sure. I mean, like, I do a lot of the workshop, reasonably good with my hands, and did an architecture degree and stuff like that, so I have a reasonable understanding of how stuff kind of goes together in a kind of a general sense. But man, got thrown in the deep end with putting this thing together. So so Mike did all the welding, as you would have seen in the last video, and apart from that, by and large, it's just been me. People chipping in here and there where there's stuff that I just generally just need somebody to do, because there's no way I'm going to be able to do it. But pretty well everything else has been me, man. Just bits of card, layout, learn how to wire everything, learn how to plumb everything, and that's been a journey. I think I massively underestimated how much time it would take me, for sure, having obviously never done it before. And I think hard for other people to know, when somebody actually knows nothing about building a boat, how much of time it's going to take you. But man, I wouldn't do anything. I don't regret it at all, because it's I know where every single bolt in that boat is, every single wire, wired the whole thing. I know where how every single piece goes together, and that's just such invaluable knowledge, owning this thing going forward. It's been pretty wild, and picked up so many new skills and stuff doing that. It's also meant that as we've gone through it, because this is the first one, it's a one-off, there's so many little things that we could tweak and adjust as we went through this whole process. And daily we kind of tweaked and adjusted things as I kind of spent time in the boat fitting it out and all of that. So actually, now that I've stood back here for a while, I actually want this kind of here or that here, or this would give me a little bit more room if I kind of push this over here or whatever. So it allowed me to kind of mold everything to where I think it should be as much as possible. One of the biggest pet peeves that I have on boats is rod sitting and rod holders. Pretty well all the fishing I do is casting, so I wanted to be able to get all the rods away, similar to what Sojin kind of had. So taking a similar concept, but running it in a different location. So being able to get 4 8-foot topwater rods with 18,000 saltiguras rigged with lures away and under the cast deck, and for those to just be able to be quickly accessed, minimizes rods sitting in rod holders and people potentially like clipping the tops off them and stuff. But I guess we'll see once we actually get it on the water and start really fishing out of it. I'm sure there's going to be heaps of stuff that I'll want to tweak and adjust once we get it out on the water. But yeah, man, it's been a ride.
Awesome, and it's going to be at the boat show, and you're going to be at the boat show, so come check it out, right?
Yeah, man, I'll be up at the boat show in Auckland 19th, 20th of this month, so in about 12 days time. And I'll have on the Marco boat stand, so we'll have it there, and I'll have a few lures with me as well. I'm going to do a limited edition release there, so some things that'll only be available in person. So if you come along, you might be able to nab yourself something.
Cool, man. Chirp, chirp.
Cheers, bro.
There has always been some pretty serious questions around how Hamish's boat was going to ride, and in fact I've heard Dane say more than once that Hamish's boat could end up being an absolute lemon, or given all the extra work that I put into designing the hull and the fact that there's a little bit of weight up front and you're sitting and driving the boat way down the back, it might be okay. But it was definitely exactly what Hamish wanted. But now that it's been on the water, all the questions have been answered, and in Dane's words, it far exceeded what I expected. So that is a good thing. Hamish's boat was always going to be super stable given the design and everything that goes with it. But after watching my drone screen and seeing Hamish jump around on the front of that boat like a jack-in-the-box, I'm blown away. That is a 5-meter boat, and it hardly moves with a big man. Hamish is around 100 kilos, and he was trying to rock that boat around and it just didn't move. And not only that, then Dane also got up out of the driver's seat, walked up onto the front of the boat, and then there were 2 grown men on the front of that 5-meter boat, and again, it looked like the thing didn't even move. So, yeah, it is awesome. Now, while I have you all here, Dane has had a fair bit of inquiry coming in for his boats from Australia and North America, and he's unable to service that market. So if you are a boat dealer in Australia or North America and you believe that having some Mako boats to sell to your customers is a good thing, then could you please contact Dane on the email that is at the bottom of the screen right now and see if you can come to some sort of arrangement. Dane would love to have a dealer on the east coast of Australia and one on the west coast of Australia and then another one in North America. So yeah, get in contact if that is you. Other than Milan's build video, that is the end of this one. Cheer, my brothers and sisters. Thank you all so very, very much for watching the Lateral Line. Believe it or not, we actually have some good weather and the boys are going fishing tomorrow and we've got a good forecast. See you all again very, very soon.
What a joy it is charging down the back straight for the completion of this monumental project. I can't really explain the waves of emotion that go with building and managing your own home. But it's been such an amazing experience that I'll never forget, and at the end of it all, I'm going to have an amazing home to relax and enjoy in. Neil and CJ from Be Plastered in Te Araha finally got their workload under control, which allowed them some time to come and plaster the house. I met CJ on the front lawn of the house one sunny afternoon. He climbed the front fence in one single bound, with a smile from ear to ear. He came up, presented his card and told me how much he enjoyed watching the Lateral Line, and if I was interested, they would love to come and plaster the house. At that stage, plastering was the last thing on my mind. I thought that hadn't even passed the frontal lobe, but Andre was quick to make sure I chased them up and got them on board. As he said, before you even realise it, we will need them on site. Every trade that is turned up on site has been passionate about their chosen trade. These guys have mastered the art of coming into a home as a team and getting a job done beautifully in record time. With custom built equipment, they had devised from 20 years of working and living the job. Plastering might not be everybody's cup of tea, but for Neil and CJ, it's what they do in the daytime when they aren't hanging with the family or finding time to get out on the water for a fish. One of the cool things about building their house has been the opportunity to meet like-minded individuals that love the organic, holistic approach, being one with the land and just loving life to the full. Thank you, world, for giving me the opportunity to meet all these wonderful people that live in the community that I didn't even know. Sometimes in life we need to stop and have a look at the great things that are right in front of us and learn to enjoy the simple things in life that make us smile every day.
The Lateral Line is proudly brought to you by Violet Organic Foods.